Hey, what's up guys? It's Pedro here from noobcoder.com, and in this tutorial we're going to be talking about importing and exporting modules in JavaScript ES6. Now we are going to be using Node.js, however Node.js does not support ES6 modules, so we are going to be using an experimental feature of Node. So to get started, you're going to realize that I have two files. I have tutorial.mjs and main.mjs. I want you to pay attention to the extension because we're not using .js. .mjs is going to signal to Node.js that, hey, we're using an experimental part of it. So tutorial is where we're going to export and main is where we're going to import. So exporting is pretty simplistic. So if I was to create a variable, say let pi equal to math.pi, for example, and let's create a function, and let's call it add. Let's say num1, num2, and we just want to return num1 and num2. And to give one more example, let's create a class called person, and we're going to give it a very simplistic constructor. This name is going to equal to name. Alright, so now I have these three stuff and I want to include it in main.mjs. So how would I do that? Well, I would say export, and within here I can say curly braces. Now within these curly braces I could say what I want to expose to the outside world. So let's say I want pi and add to be exposed. So I would just paste that in here and have add. Okay, so this looks good. Now within main.mjs, I could say import, and I could use curly braces, and I could say add and pi. And then I need to say from, and from is going to be the name of the file you want to import from. So I'll just say tutorial.mjs. So now how do I know if this is working or not? Well, I can just say, I could just print out pi, and I can actually call the function add. So if I save this and save this file, and now we can open up Node, and I could say Node, and we need to pass in a flag and say experimental modules followed by the file name. So I'm just going to say main.mjs. So now if I run that, you see that we get the result of pi, and then 1 plus 1 is 2. So you can see that how we imported add and pi into our main file. So now let's actually test to see if person is available to us. So if I was just to say person, pass it in Bob, and save it, and now if I try to run this, you can see person is not defined, and that's because we did not export it. So if I want to export person, pass in person, and now if I run it, so I forgot to import it when I exported it. So I just need to add person here and save it. And now if I rerun this, this should work. So now I have pi printed out, 1 plus 1 is 2, and now I have our newly created person object. So now I want to talk about aliases. So let's actually clear this out first. And let's say instead of add, I want to call it add2, for example. So I could just use the as keyword and say as add2. And now what happens is add2 becomes the alias for the add function. So now if I copy this and say add2, and let's save it, and now let's run it, you can see that add2 works as expected. So 1 plus 1 is 2. And you could add aliases for as many as you want. So pi, I could change that to something else. And person, I could change that to something else as well. And now I want to introduce you to a new keyword known as default. So let's actually comment all this out. And let's head over to our tutorial file and let's comment all this out. And let's get rid of all this. So instead of saying export and then curly braces and then the name of what you want to export, I can say export default person. And now if I save this, head over to main and get rid of these curlies, I can just say import person, like so. And now if I save this and now run it, you can see we get the desired output of person. Now because I'm using the default keyword, I could actually name this whatever I want. So it doesn't have to be person. I could just say banana. And Node will automatically assume, hey, he's importing the default, so banana is going to be the alias for person. So if I say new banana, save this, and now execute it, you can see that we get the same exact result. And last but not least, we can actually mix the two syntaxes together. So just because I'm exporting a default does not mean I can't export anything else. So let's uncomment this. Let's uncomment this. And now I can say on another line, export, and we could use the same syntax as before. So I'm just going to say pi and add. And within our main file, we're just going to put a comma, and then we're going to have these brackets, and we're going to say add and pi. And remember, we changed this to add2, so let's combine another alias and say as add2. So now if I save this and save this, and now I was to execute it, you can see we get the expected output. So this is pretty much the basics of importing and exporting in JavaScript ES6.